flights will be reduced on 16 international routes and suspended on 3 overseas destinations between the 21st of June and the 15th of July. Russia is on the brink of a recession following 3 years of war and Western sanctions, the country's economy minister has said. US President Donald Trump says he will make up his mind within 2 weeks on whether the US military will get directly involved in the conflict between Israel and Iran, given the substantial chance for renewed diplomatic negotiations over Tehran's nuclear program, as these two sides bombarded one another for a 7th day. Trump has been weighing whether to attack Iran by striking its well-defended Fordo uranium enrichment facility, which is buried under a mountain and widely considered to be out of reach of all but America's bunker buster bomb. We have a reaction from the White House lined up for you. Listen in.
I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." That's a quote directly from the president for all of you today. The president is saying that he will make a decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks. It's very clear and direct.
Will US President Donald Trump launch airstrikes on Iran or pull off a diplomatic U-turn in the next 14 days? Well, the world's holding its breath, but what's happening behind closed doors, and how could this change global security, oil prices, and even your future plans to study abroad? Well, let's break it down. US President Donald Trump met his national security team 3 times in 3 days. He's weighing one of the biggest decisions of his second term, whether or not to join Israel in its military campaign against Iran. But insiders say Trump has 3 non-negotiables before giving the green light. The first one being, is a military strike absolutely necessary? Secondly, can the US avoid getting trapped in another Middle East war? And thirdly, will the strike actually eliminate Iran's nuclear capacity or just inflame it further? I'll tell you where it gets complicated. Even as war looms, there's direct back-channeled contact between Washington and Tehran, because Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, has been speaking to Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. Iran is reportedly willing to negotiate, even propose a delegation to the White House. But Trump, he isn't convinced. He says, and I quote, "It's getting very late, and if diplomacy fails, he's prepared to act." Meanwhile, Europe's top diplomats from the UK, Germany, France, and the EU are rushing to Geneva for a last-ditch peace effort. India, though not directly involved, as you are well aware, has a lot at stake: energy security, regional peace, and our student diaspora. If the US strikes Iran, expect oil prices to spike again, which is bad news for your wallet and for India's economy as well. Global tensions could also trigger new travel advisories, visa delays, as well as uncertainty for Indian students abroad, especially in the US or West Asia. Even global university collaborations could take a hit. And don't forget, Iran is still under sanctions, and its retaliation won't just target Israel. The entire region, from Gulf nations to NATO bases, could be pulled in, and that affects us all. So what should the world be hoping for? A deal in Geneva or decisive action? Well, Trump has 14 days to decide, and we have 14 days to hope cooler heads prevail. And for an expert's view on the matter, we have with us Dr. Kaman Bkari, who's the Senior Director at the New Lines Institute for Strategy and Policy in Washington. Dr. Bkari, thank you so much for making time for us. Are these reported back-channel talks between the US and Iran, do they signal that Washington is trying to sideline Israel's aggressive posture?
Well, thank you for having me. I think that the United States and particularly this White House is very cognizant of the risks of war. President Trump would much rather prefer that he not have to take military action because the risks of things going wrong are pretty high. If you look at the situation domestically within the United States, there are clear divisions within his own support base. His Republican Party, that on one side are those who do not want the United States to be fighting foreign wars. On the other hand are those who think that the U.S. and Israeli interests are the same. So he has that division to deal with as well. He has the risks of escalating things. Let's say that the United States uses B-2s to drop the GBU-57, which is a 30,000 pound massive ordnance penetrator bomb, and that leads to the Iranians attacking U.S. forces elsewhere. The U.S. gets sucked into a wider vortex of conflict, and that could, have a devastating impact both domestically for the president and for the U.S. position in the region. So he's wanting to think this through, and he's going to wait for, to exhaust all diplomatic options. But I think that the Iranian imperative also is to come to the table.
Right.
Regional countries also want that to happen. And I think Israel has achieved most of its goals. And so I think there is a good chance that we can have diplomacy.
Right. But if the US is speaking to Iran, of course, back-channel talks, even after the Israeli hospital strike, is that sort of a sign that Washington's red lines are shifting?
I don't think so. I think that Washington had one specific red line, which is that there can be no path to nuclear weapons for Iran. And that means 0% enrichment on Iranian soil. Now, how do you engineer that is the issue here. I think that Iran's losses are as such that the Iranians are also calculating that this is probably not worth it. And they also have huge risks, far more than anybody else. If the fighting goes on, if the Israeli strikes continue, there's a high probability of the regime losing control internally. Obviously, the Islamic Republic does not want to go there, and therefore it has enough incentive to come to the table. So I think that the U.S. red lines are still the same. I think the only difference is that prior to the Israeli attacks being launched, the Iranians thought that because the president does not want wars, that they have room to maneuver in the negotiations. So they weren't accepting 0% enrichment.
Right.
7 days later, that situation has completely changed for them.
Yes.
So I think that's where we are.
Dr. Bkari, thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure to have you on our show and to hear your views. Meanwhile, I must inform our viewers, Tehran is pushing oil out fast. Many experts say that we're seeing economic pre-positioning before an escalation. But of course, we'll keep a close eye on the key developments for you. I must inform you, meanwhile, that Israeli jets have bombed a nuclear reactor under construction in central Iran during a wave of airstrikes on the 7th day of the conflict between the two countries. The Israeli military said it targeted the Iraq heavy water reactor's core, sealed to stop it being used for nuclear weapons development. Vishal Vivek has been tracking all the finer developments for us. He joins us currently. Vishal, take us through the details.
Well, we have accessed the before and after images of the site that was struck by Israeli jets. You can see the damage on the top of the dome of the nuclear structure. The whole roof has almost collapsed. These images have been taken from satellites, and you can see the damage on some of the sites. The buildings have been totally demolished, and this whole reactor was not functioning at the time it was struck because it doesn't have uranium fuel. It also means that there won't be any leakage. There's no risk of leakage from that site, but it was a key site back in 2015 when Iran struck a deal with the US, that big nuclear deal. So this was also part of that. And this is a heavy water reactor. This is not exactly a nuclear facility, but this can be used to process plutonium, which can further lead to atomic bombs. So that was why Israel decided to bomb this. They tried to do it twice. The second time they were successful, but most of the facility still stands, and Benjamin Netanyahu has clearly said that Israeli regime will continue to bomb nuclear facilities throughout the coming days.
As always, Vishal, thanks so much for taking us through the latest details that have emerged. This as India has decided to evacuate its nationals from Israel who wish to leave in view of the unfolding security situation in their country over the ongoing conflict with Iran. In fact, I beg your pardon. In fact, New Delhi's decision to evacuate its citizens came hours after an Iranian missile struck a hospital in the Beersheba area of Israel. So the Ministry of External Affairs has categorically said that in view of the recent developments between Israel and Iran, the government of India has decided to evacuate from Israel those Indian nationals who wish to leave. The MEA has further added that their travel from Israel to India will be facilitated through the land borders and thereafter by air to India. Meanwhile, Iran is set to engage in nuclear talks with foreign ministers of Britain, France and Germany, and the European Union's top diplomat in Geneva. Israel and Iran have traded missile strikes, as I just mentioned, with both the countries inflicting heavy damage on each other. In one of the biggest escalations of the conflict so far, Iran launched a barrage of missiles that hit southern Israel's largest hospital. However, Iran said that the strikes were meant for the country's military infrastructure. Now, the strikes injured hundreds of people across Israel. Parallelly, Israel struck the Iraq heavy water reactor, as Vishal is reporting, one of Iran's key nuclear sites, hours after issuing an evacuation order. We have a reaction from the UN spokesman for you. Listen in.
We will not be participating. We'll obviously be following it. I mean, as we said yesterday, for the Secretary General, for us, it remains clear that diplomacy is the only and best way forward. Let's see what comes out of this meeting, but the fact that there is a dialogue between Iran and those three European Union countries is a positive in itself, but obviously we'll have to see what the outcome is.
Meanwhile, a grenade was thrown at the residence of the Norwegian ambassador to Israel just on Thursday evening in Tel Aviv. This is what the Israeli foreign minister has said. Fortunately, there was no injury caused, but a grenade was thrown at the residence of the Norwegian ambassador in Tel Aviv. Meanwhile, in a phone call, Xi Jinping discussed the Israel-Iran conflict with Vladimir Putin and said a ceasefire is an urgent priority in settling the conflict in West Asia, and the use of force is not the right way to resolve international disputes. This was Xi Jinping's first comment on the current conflict in the region amid US President Donald Trump's warning to Iran and Israel's threat to target Iran's supreme leader. I must inform you that Kremlin's foreign policy aide Yuri Ushakov said in Moscow that Presidents Putin and Xi, in their hour-long phone call, have agreed to issue orders to their relevant agencies to share information on Iran. He said both leaders hold a similar stance and strongly condemn Israel's actions that violate the UN Charter and other norms of international law. Iran's foreign minister will meet with European counterparts in Geneva, meanwhile, as an Israeli airstrike campaign continues to target his country. And the Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi, will travel to Geneva for these meetings today. This is what the state-run IRNA has also confirmed. Slipping into a very quick break, news and updates continue in a moment. Do stay tuned.
Why was there a hurry? Was it the government that was in a hurry?
I don't want to blame anyone.
Joining us today here in the NDTV newsroom.
Government cannot walk away from this responsibility.
Cricket is region of sort in this country.
Would you like to comment on what happened?
What is the condition of the injured at this point? How many people died?
What exactly happened? You have lost your daughter.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru, only on NDTV 24/7.
as the Iran-Israel war escalates. Indian students in the crossfire.
As soon as possible evacuate किया जाए.
War zone worries grip parents. The next Indian mass evacuation ahead. NDTV at Ground Zero.
Is your business future ready? Join the 13-week strategic ESG certification program for business sustainability and growth for CXO and business leaders by NDTV, Terry and Zenora. Master global ESG frameworks, gain real-world tools and lead with impact. Starts July 13th. Enroll now and power your business with sustainability.
Do you really know the company you invest in? What is the real picture behind presentations and claims? Is the outlook as rosy as the company claims? Know Your Company, powered by NDTV Profit Research, shines a light on the biggest stock market movers.
From the echo of the Trump tariffs to the geopolitical tensions in West Asia, and on the sidelines, a possible thaw in the frosty relations between India and Canada. I will bring you all the latest updates from the Kananaskis G7 Summit. NDTV, live from the G7 Summit.
Well, NASA has once again postponed the planned launch of the Axiom 4 mission to the International Space Station. This mission, which includes Indian astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla and crew members from Poland, Hungary and the US, was initially rescheduled for the 22nd of June, which is Sunday. It will now take place on a later date that is yet to be announced. The space agency actually needs additional time to continue evaluating International Space Station operations after recent repair work in the backmost segment of the orbital laboratory's Zvezda service module. For the nitty-gritties, let's listen in to Pallav Bagla's report.
One more day, one more good morning, and one more delay. Now we've been at this delays since end of May. One after the other, the mission for Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla has been delayed. Well, in India, we talk of delays which happen in Indian establishments. Now we are seeing how NASA is continuously delaying one after the other, and so also SpaceX and Axiom Space, the mission which will carry Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla to space. After several delays, at last count I had 6, now it's probably 7. They had announced that on Sunday, June 22nd, the mission will lift off from the Kennedy Space Center. Now, NASA has announced that that particular date has been pushed back and no new date has been announced. The window for the launch is still open till June 30th. So fingers crossed whether it will happen within June or it will slip to July. But at the moment, Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla and 3 other crew, which is an American, a Hungarian, and a Polish astronaut, remain in quarantine for over 5 weeks. This is a long time, and we also need to assess what is their mental and physical status of their being able to take on a mission like this. But right now, NASA says that there was a leak on the International Space Station on the Russian module, and they are continuing to assess that. Because of that, they don't want to add more crew onto the International Space Station. There are 7 astronauts already there, 4 more were to be added. And as a consequence, Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla will have to wait a little longer. So will India have to wait, beating their hearts and keeping their fingers crossed for a successful mission for Group Captain Shukla.
In other news, the US State Department says it is restarting the suspended process for foreigners applying for student visas, but there's a caveat. I didn't explain it earlier. Listen in. Under new rules announced by the Trump administration, the United States has resumed student visa interviews. But there's a big twist. All applicants, whether F, M, or J visa, must now set their social media profiles to public. So your Instagram, your Twitter, even your old Facebook posts are now open to review. US consular officers have been told to scrutinize your posts, not just for illegal activity, but for any hostility towards the United States, its people, its institutions, or their core principles. And if your account is set to private, that could be seen as something to hide, potentially leading to visa rejection or further grilling. This directive, signed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, is part of a broader tightening of immigration under US President Donald Trump's second term. And the cable, dated the 18th of June, explicitly asks officers to flag applicants with a history of political activism, especially if it's been confrontational or violent. Free speech advocates, meanwhile, in the US say this violates the First Amendment, but officials say it's about vetting who comes in. So here's the catch. Even if you've aced your SATs and got into your dream school, your Instagram captions, the memes you share, even retweets, could decide whether you make it to that campus at all. This also raises big questions like, should social media policing be part of the visa process, or is this just another way to block free expression? In other news, the US President Donald Trump continued his extraordinary and targeted verbal attacks on the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, calling for a massive 2.5-point reduction in interest rates. Now, despite appointing Jerome Powell to the role in 2017, Trump has frequently chastised the Fed chair for keeping rates higher than the president would like. And on Wednesday, after a monetary policy making meeting, the Fed said it would be maintaining rates between 4.25% and 4.5%, noting that the US economy remains strong. But the path of inflation is uncertain, in part because of the enormous tariffs that Trump has placed on foreign goods. And with that, let's turn our attention now to TikTok. Well, the US president has extended the deadline for TikTok's sale in the US for a further 90 days. So the video sharing app has faced questions over its future after the US passed a law last year requiring the app to be banned unless sold by its Chinese parent company ByteDance. Lawmakers say it's posed a risk to national security, something TikTok has vehemently denied. But Trump, who vows to save TikTok and has done so even during his presidential campaign, has signed an executive order which has delayed the date for enforcing the law now for a third time. All right, another crucial news. If you thought that May 23rd report confirming the leak of login data that totals to an astonishing 184 million compromised credentials was frightening, I hope you're sitting down now, because researchers have just confirmed what is also certainly the largest data breach ever, with an almost incredible 16 billion login credentials, including passwords, exposed. As part of an ongoing investigation that started at the beginning of this year, researchers have postulated that the massive password leak is the work of multiple information stealers. As you are well aware, password compromise is no joke. It actually leads to account compromise that leads to the compromise of most things that you hold quite close in this tech-centric world we live in. It's also why Google is telling billions of users now to replace their passwords with much secure passkeys. It's why the FBI in the US is warning people not to click on links in SMS messages, something Indian authorities have been doing as well. It's why stolen passwords are up for sale in their millions on the dark web to anyone with very little amount of cash required to purchase them. So this 16 billion strong leak, housed in a number of supermassive data sets, it includes billions of login credentials from social media, which includes your Google accounts, Facebook. It includes VPNs, developer portals, and user accounts for all the major vendors. And finally, a team of students from IIT Madras has designed and built a solar-powered car called Agnya to take part in the Bridgestone World Solar Challenge 2025. This global race actually covers 3,000 kilometers across the Australian outback from Darwin to Adelaide and will be held in August. Take a look.
This car must be able to endure all the harsh weather conditions faced in Australia during the 3,000 kilometer race. In simple terms, the solar energy that is coming from the sun is converted into electrical energy from the solar panels on the car. This is stored in the battery and then redirected to a very efficient motor, which is around 98% efficient. In addition to this, we have made the car entirely out of carbon fiber, making it very lightweight. The car is highly efficient in terms of aerodynamics, and it's around 5 times more aerodynamically efficient than a typical car. We are really confident in the car right now because we have spent around 15 months in both designing and testing of this car. While Agneya is capable of going at around 110 kilometers per hour, we just cruise around 70 to 80 kilometers per hour so that less energy is consumed and the car is efficient for a longer run.
If we compare it with the normal electric vehicles which are already there, the energy for powering those cars are mostly coming from the thermal power plant or the other resources which are using petroleum or coal-based resources. Seeing this car as a future optimistic thing, we believe that charging directly from the solar will help us to further push it to the sustainability aspect of the car. Lead time for the charging will be lesser, as well as we don't have to stop at any outback condition where most of the electric cars give a range of around 405 kilometers. This can run and at the same time charge itself. We got a chance to have our testing at Ashok Leyland testing track, and what helped us is we ran the car entirely for 2 hours continuously without facing any difficulty in it, with a cruising speed of 80 kilometers per hour, and that also gave us confidence in pushing the limit at Australia.
It was only in 2023 that we realized the truly global nature of this challenge, and we realized the scale at which international teams that participate even operate. And that is when we came back, we decided that we have to start almost from scratch all over again, and we went back to the drawing board and came from ground up, and I think we have a car that is truly worth competing.
On that note, we're slipping into a very quick break, but the news continues right here on NDTV. For the latest updates and breaking news, don't forget to subscribe to the NDTV YouTube channel as well.
How often have you turned away from debates that descend into endless fights? We bring you a show where every question is answered, where every debate finds its resolution, where every story finds its conclusion, where opinions collide but facts prevail, where stories unfold with insights and trust. When the noise ends, the last word begins.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru.